Hello and welcome to the Dive Bar, where we dive into the games of the week. I am Noah, also known as Bunny Koo, and I am joined again by Tyler, also known as Samino Mas, and Trevor, also known as My Back is Sore. And we are joined by special guests, Captain of Two, SlamuraiJack. How's it going, guys?
Great.
Super duper.
Going good after being knocked out of playoffs?
It is nice not to have to schedule anymore. So that's always the silver lining of being eliminated.
There is no silver lining, just sadness and tears. To be honest.
Scheduling has been a huge pain in the ass for me this entire season. So one less week of that, honestly, kind of relief.
Yeah, I imagine, nice to get your vacation started early. Right before Thanksgiving. So. But anyways, speaking of being knocked out, let's hop into the quarterfinals. Gonna be just going through quarterfinals kind of quick, so that way we can focus more on the semis and finals themselves. So first quarterfinals match was 1IQ versus RAWR. 1IQ won it 2-0. And this series really showed that Rihi's got some champs cooked up for playoffs. Pulled out the Wukong and the Echo mid. Went pretty crazy on both of them. It was 19-2 on the Wukong.
And I did cast this series, so I do remember it fairly well. The highlight, obviously, is the Wukong counter pick to Yone, and that worked extremely well. Like literally from level 1, I'm pretty sure he got a solo kill on the Yone level 1, and it never really stopped after that. So that was a very smart pick by Rihi, because there's literally nothing Yone can do in that matchup. Like, you just can't handle a bruiser that can click on him repeatedly. And I mean, the rest of 1IQ did really well as well. But when your mid is 3,000 gold ahead at 7 or 8 minutes, it makes the rest of the game pretty easy.
Yep, Jack said it well. Rihi played well. The entire team played well, and they just played better. Honestly, like in every aspect of the game.
Yeah, I mean, looking at game 1, just like even the damage charts, the highest damage dealer for RAWR only dealt 13,000 damage in 31 minutes. And if you're dealing that little damage with a Yone on your team, you're not really going to win that game. Game number 2, I don't know, like Richie was just on his main now, I guess, with Echo, since Yone's either banned out or played by the other team. He's just been dominating. Playing really well on the Echo, provides, I don't know, Trevor could probably speak better to the Echo as an Echo player, but I think he pilots it pretty darn well.
Yeah, definitely a good champion right now. I think it got buffed, but honestly, I have no idea. Don't read patch notes, but that's what I've heard.
I will say that Echo is actually really annoying to lane against, because he's one of like the only assassins that can actually push really hard in lane. And this isn't really relevant to Trevor, because he usually would play in jungle, but in mid lane he just spam Q on the wave, and your average mid laner can't really do anything about it. And that ended up being really huge when we ended up playing them, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But it's a good pick for them, because it gives a lot of tempo in mid lane in a way that assassin mids normally don't.
Yeah, and Wandering Monarch, he also had a really great series as well, going 10-2-6, and then 7-2-14. Like, I know Richie popped off, but like you still need some supporting, and he actually almost outdamaged Richie in game 2, just off by like 100. So actually just off by 11 damage. So pumping out.
Yeah, he's been killing it.
Yeah,
he has been killing it.
Yeah, that Corki champion also is looking really strong.
Yeah, surprised not as many people picked it up.
But with that, we will now hop into CR versus ABW. ABW winning in 2 matches, the start of ABW's sort of climb to the top. I was a little disappointed in this one because Eric just had gotten Rookie of the Season, and I was so hyped for him, and then just didn't go that well for him. ABW just were, I don't know, they played the game so much better. I do have to say that in game 2, I believe it was Coach Rivals that lane swapped against ABW, and it worked really well for them in the early game, but I don't know if it was necessarily just the champs or just late game plays, but game didn't go in Coach Rivals' favor.
Right. No, I remember watching like the end of game 2, and there's a fight near Baron Pit, but CR didn't have their mid laner in that fight, and ABW had everyone. So kind of just difference right there in that main team fight to end the game.
Yeah, similar to 1IQ. I mean, their whole team's just putting out a good effort, and there's no one person that's like bringing them down, especially in this series. And the role swaps also are, I mean, clear. Yeah, I mean that's obvious. I mean, they're going back. If someone doesn't know ABW's real roles, now they're playing them. They haven't been playing them the whole season, so they look a lot better with really bad Zed in the mid lane. And then they're currently just like swapping JWM and Bromstein, so that's really powerful as well. Either of them can play top, either of them can play support, and they play them both really well. So that's exciting to see, and just it makes draft harder for sure. And yeah, I mean, everyone just played really well in this series for them.
And honestly, mad props to ABW in general. I mean, the swapping their laners around so they're in their better places definitely helps a lot. But I mean, they lost 5 straight weeks coming into the playoffs, so they barely even made it in to begin with. So I assume they were dead in the water going in the playoffs. I expected CR to take this one easily, but not only did that not happen, basically the opposite happened. CR was the one who looked dead. So, and ABW showed that wasn't a fluke either the week after. So, I mean, congrats to them. They came out of nowhere after a long time of being sad to make the finals. So, congrats to them. I look forward to seeing them on the 1st, right? That's when the finals are, I believe.
Yep, on December 1st, 7 p.m. Central. I do also want to say that I think it's kind of crazy that Yon was allowed to be picked in game 2, and that wasn't banned away. It was really good in game 1, and then like almost even better in game 2. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to let champions go through, but you got to have a plan.
Yeah,
I mean, just based off what they draft, what CR drafted, it doesn't really look like they had a plan. Maybe they like the matchup that they got mid with Aurora, but I don't think that's a great matchup personally. So
yeah, I don't know. I think just like looking at the bans between game 1 and game 2, I think they thought different parts of ABW is more problematic than just the Yon. Like they saw Dude playing a Mumu. They banned that out. Mpex's Jinx, they banned that out. And then they really didn't want to trade over the Kog'Maw, so they banned that out as well because Mpex has been playing really well on ADC this season. So I think they're figuring, hey, like if we can shut him down and put Sawdude on something that he might not be so comfortable on, like the Yon, even if he does something, it's not going to be enough to carry them. But unfortunately, it carried them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Yon's like a bit too problematic. I mean, it's easy to say it now in hindsight that I would have wanted to trade the Kog'Maw ban for a Yon ban, but I don't know, Yon is really strong. I feel like it's easier to outplay other strong champs or outdraft other strong champs than it is to outdraft Yon.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of their interesting bans in the series was the Nasus game 1. I mean, I think JWM plays that, but even if he does, he's maybe played it once this entire season. So just a really strange pick, unless they were just had this like purposefully drafted comp with this Galio top, and the only thing that countered it was Nasus. But I don't know, it just didn't. And then clearly the Galio went 0-6, so that was just interesting. I mean, they could have taken out really any of the champions that they played. Yone, Jinx, Amumu, like all of those are a lot more played from all these characters. So that was an interesting ban, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. The Coach Rivals definitely had some questionable bans for sure. Like Kane, I guess I can kind of get Kane. He can be
Kane for
annoying,
sure.
but I don't know. I don't think he's necessarily the strongest, but he can be really annoying, so I get it. Kindred is... I don't know, I guess actually Kindred's been better recently, I think, but hasn't been good for a while. But yeah, the Nasus, I don't know if I've seen... Let me check super quick. I guess they have 3 games on Nasus this season, so not too crazy, but yeah, not. I mean, I guess a Nasus can be annoying if the game goes long enough, so it makes sense in that way. But yeah, I think there are other things I'd rather see banned, like you said.
Actually, I do find it fascinating looking between games 1 and game 2 for CR. They changed every single ban from game 1 to game 2, and I think that's the only time I've seen that the entire season, where a team would ban 5 champions and be like, "Fuck it, we're gonna ban 5 different champions in game 2." Usually, you keep at least a few of them, or you don't change any of them. But they were like, "They're gonna completely flip the script," and I think they actually did worse the second time around. So maybe they should have kept some of those first round bans and just kind of found a way to play it better. But I don't know. I think the pressure of the playoffs kind of gets to a lot of teams, to be honest. I mean, it definitely got to us a little bit. So, but again, the self flame will come.
I mean, I gotta disagree a little bit on I'm worse second time around. I think that like them changing up their bans was really beneficial. The only thing that I would iffy on is the Kog'Maw, like I said before, but that's just because I really want a Yone ban in there somewhere. But like the gold difference was a lot closer, and also the kill difference. It was 20 extra kills that ABW had on Coach Rivals in game 1, but only 4 extra kills that they had in game 2. So I think their draft went a lot better, and also the game went longer. But
Yeah.
I'll say Riot does owe Caress a bit of an apology. I see he built RAWR first on Aurora, which is sad. I don't think I've seen that since like the day she came out, because it's one of her recommended items still for some reason.
mm-hmm.
But everyone just rightfully taps right past that, except for Caress apparently. So I don't know if he's just new to Aurora and he didn't do his research, or if he just knows some tech that we don't. But you don't do any damage if you rush Aurora, RAWR on Aurora. So would that made a difference? I doubt it. But when you see some really questionable build choices, you kind of have to wonder, like, did they do their research? Are they cooking? Are they, what happened?
I'll also be curious to see if I guess now all we have left is the finals, but I'll be curious to see if in the finals Aurora is still picked at all because of how her ult has been changed to no longer trap people inside.
I have played a few games of Aurora since then, so I can't speak on that. It
You're not
doesn't
in
make
finals, so
that's true. I'm not in finals, but I haven't played Aurora though. So, but
yeah.
If you don't want me to give my opinion, I won't.
No, dude.
No, it's the ult being changed to not trap people doesn't make as big of a difference as you would think it would, because if they leave, it hits them with a fat slow for I think like a second and a half. It's like a 75% slow, so they can still barely move. So yeah, they can get out of the circle, but it's usually better to just stay in the circle. It's like running out of a thresh box, basically. It's usually better to just stay in there and try to wait it out. But in exchange, Aurora's abilities are just like enough longer range that you can really tell the difference, to the point where like abilities that would have missed before will now hit, and that it feels really nice, to be honest. Like I think she's probably honestly might be a little bit stronger than before the changes, so which is probably not what they were intending. But I'm enjoying it.
That's good. I've heard people complaining about like the change of her move speed from her passive to her W mostly. But I don't know, that always seems like sort of fine to me, but I guess it hurts laning a lot more.
In top lane, particularly, because you used to use it to just abuse melee champs and constantly keep proccing it without having to use your W. And then if they ever tried to go on you anyway, you just W away. But now you have to use W if you want the speed boost. So, but that also has its benefits too, because now you can, like in mid lane, if you're playing more assassin-y, you can W for the speed boost to get in closer or angle on people. So it's more assassin-y and less kitey, which I think is what they were going for.
I like that. That's good. But after the Aurora talk, we now get to hop into. Oops! I almost just skipped a match.
I was gonna have to stop you if you kept going too far. Yep. We still got what is it? 2 versus BW,
yeah,
right?
2 versus BW is the next one up. 2 winning in 3 matches, 2-1. How was the series?
It was tough. Like honestly, we lost game 1, 46 minutes. So I mean the whole series as a whole took over 3 hours. So it was a very long series, and they took game 1, and honestly, things were shook after game 1 because it was very long, and they banned out my Morgana finally. People finally got the memo on that one. And we were really not prepared for how to draft when they just ban out both my main champions, because no one's really done that. And we put together a decent comp, but it eventually got to the point where we couldn't kill anybody that we caught. And so we eventually just got outscaled, even though we had a pretty big lead going on. And we had Corki, and Corky's super OP, but it did show the weakness of Corki in that because he's relatively shorter range. And because they have a Malzahar, he's terrified of ever really being in there in a team fight. And the damage numbers speak for themselves. Kog'Maw does a bajillion more damage with half tank items. And once you get to that point, the game's kind of cooked. So, and thankfully, BW decided to not ban the Morgana the next game to give us a nice rebound game in game 2, which I really appreciated. We kind of needed it. I don't know why they did that. I think I remember correctly, game 2 was much more lopsided, even though it still took a while. And game 3, same thing, was very lopsided, but it took us forever to end because they had Sivir and Morgana clearing every wave, and they did steal the Morgana first round and played a mid on top of that, which I found very surprising. I had a feeling they would steal it, but I didn't expect to lane against it. Waps did very well for having, I assume he's never played Morgana mid before, but he seemed to understand it. So
is it difficult to press W? Is that
yeah, the wave clear is the easy part, obviously. But believe it or not, there is some nuance to it in terms of actually how you play versus other champions. Sivir still did the most damage in the game while being 1-7 because AFK wave clear boomerangs of doom. So we're very lucky that our bot lane snowballed as hard as it did in game 3, because we probably would have lost if that didn't happen. Because despite the 17k gold difference, it was actually a close game. That's why it took 47 minutes or 45 minutes for it to end. So honestly, very well played by BW. It looked like we were going to lose, to be honest. We expected them to not be that difficult. We swept them earlier in the season, but they've improved a lot over the course of the year. And we've got a lot of flack from Rihi for almost losing to them, which was fair. But ours was probably the one series of quarterfinals that was actually really competitive. So, I would have preferred less stress, but I was happy to do it for the viewers, right? I don't know how many of them lasted through the whole 3-hour series, but yeah, it was fun. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, that was a great breakdown of it. Do you two have anything to say about it?
No.
I would just say it doesn't surprise me that BW looked like a good team. We played them. They were actually the only team that we lost to. during the regular season where we were actually playing. We had 2 losses, but the last game of the series didn't count for us, so we were just memeing. But this team did look very good. Their ADC has looked good the entire year. Potential Rookie of the Year nominee, I would say. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they put up a fight. So it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it is weird that they didn't ban Morgana in game 2. Opted for Corki, I guess, just because you guys banned out the Kog'Maw.
We thought the Corki ban very weird at the time because the Corki looked bad in game 1. So I don't know why they banned it in game 2. We were very surprised, but
unless
we took it.
yeah, I mean, I guess just like into whatever they were hoping to play, like Corki might screw it. I don't know, but yeah, it worked out for you guys. Obviously, game was much faster and worked out a lot better for you guys in general. Although not banning the Skarner, I don't know. I think Skarner is like the only one, like that's one of their best junglers. Skarner's just annoying. But I mean, you won, so I'm not gonna judge the draft that much.
We've generally done pretty well against Skarner this season when it's been picked. So that was kind of our thought process to leave it open. And I believe we knew they weren't gonna ban, or we thought they weren't gonna ban Morgana by then. So just based on the timing, and it's like you can Black Shield over Skarner Engage, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were prepared to deal with that. The Zen'Zhao was much more annoying because his stupid little invulnerability circle that no one on our team wanted to step into was actually a huge problem when he's got a Malzahar and a Kog'Maw standing right next to him. So also we got really sick of the Malzahar, so we banned that game 3. We didn't even think it was OP. We just didn't want to deal with that garbage anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think that's how most people feel about Malzahar. Like it is just a wave clear bot, and then I see someone that's dealing damage to most of my team. I won't let you play for a little bit.
Yep.
But man, is he great at just those 2 things.
Yeah.
But with that, now we can hop into the other quarterfinals, the last quarterfinals match. PSR versus HH. PSR winning it 2-0. But you talk us through that one, Trevor.
Just did our business, you know. Got in there, 2-0'd, got out. I mean, they had a sub, so that's unfortunate. And their sub played Kalista, which is even more unfortunate for them because Kalista is a garbage champion.
Yeah, that was my reaction watching the 2. I'm like, really? This is where you're going to bust out Kalista for the first time in the playoffs? Yeah. It's like, and they ran it back for game 2. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, it just did not look good. It's a hard champion, so it's nothing against the person who played it. But not only is it a hard champion, it's just a bad champion right now. So those 2 combinations usually do not work well. But yeah, I mean, we literally just did what we always did the entire season. Picked up a split pusher top. I picked some random crap mid lane, jungle, and then our mid lane just picked wave clear. Our bot lane picked wave clear, and that's all we do. So, I mean, the Seraphine looked insanely good this series. Our game 1 draft was beautiful. It was just so hard for them to do anything into us. I mean, we had so much AoE. It was almost impossible for them to do anything. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Really not a whole lot to say on this one. And I mean, you just shut down Vivian. Vivian's a great player, so banned out his 2 best champions and go from there.
Yeah. Like Trevor said, banned out Skarner, because Skarner's OP. Lily as well is obviously Vivian Desu's key jungler to pick up. I think letting through Aatrox, good idea. Like I know early on a lot of people were banning it because he had a really good showing on it. I forget. I think it was against someone on 2. So I was like, oh my gosh, like he's just ruining top lane. But I don't think it's as scary as that. Zesty also did really well. Game number 2, good idea to teleport top lane whenever the Elder Dragon was up. Trevor was out there clearing mid wave, like a good jungler does as the dragon's being taken down. HH did get the Elder, but PSR got the ace on that, so
Yeah, it
worked
was
out in their favor.
technical. I think it might still be. Actually, I don't think we streamed this one, but yeah, it's pretty much was like, Zach, you need a TP bot like right now because
Top.
wait, no,
He went top lane.
Yeah, because we were like, they're gonna get Elder. There's nothing we could do. None of us are close enough. So then he went, and then it was actually better than we could have ever expected. This was a terrible misplay by them. But Galio decided to TP after him, which Galio was like destroying the fights. I mean, he was just such a presence in all their fights. So shout out to Blitz Sprite. But yeah, I definitely shouldn't have TP'd because we were able to just walk in, and without any Galio, I mean, you're going, it's a Zoe, a Callista, a Graves, and a Aatrox, so they have nothing to peel me off. So yeah, it worked out really well. That wasn't the intent of the TP. The intent was just to shove it down. We'll try to stall them, but it actually ended up being even more terrible for them. But that's why TP is another good reason you use TP, because it's hard to respawn right in the moment on what you should do as a team. I mean, you're never going to make the right call every single time, so that's just a prime example of they were probably freaking out in their comms, like, oh shoot, Fior's TPing, like what should we do? And then Galio was just like, I'll TP. But then in reality, that actually screws them. So if you don't have TP, you would never be able to see how they react to those quick plays. So that's also an edge that TP gives over to you over the enemy.
Yeah, I do remember that one a little bit. At the time when I saw Galio TP, I was kind of just like, I don't know, I would rather like you just be there for the fight, and then the fight happened and things didn't look good. So yeah, I don't know. I get that it was kind of just probably like, because yeah, it's a tough one because you really don't want to like just let your top get taken, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, they just needed Elder. I mean, if they would have had Elder, they could have just came back and killed Zach, and he maybe would have gotten a tower or two. But instead, they got destroyed. And yeah, Master Yi wins again. You love to see it.
Yeah, and like Jack said, could have been just like the pressure of playoffs. Just thinking every single inch that you give up feels like you're giving up a mile if there's too much pressure on you. So I guess that could have been influencing the TP to protect the base.
Well, I think the sudden switch to the single Elim playoffs kind of caught people off guard too, because we spent the whole first 8 weeks of the season assuming it would be double Elim playoffs like last season, and then they're like, oh, Thanksgiving and Christmas, oops, we forgot our holidays near the end of the year, so we're gonna do single Elim playoffs. I was kind of mad about that, I'm not gonna lie, because I was ready to get that bye week for being the number 2 seed, and then Austin and Darby are like, no buys, and I'm like, So plus I got to use that second attempt right about now, but whatever.
Now suspiciously 1 IQs in finals.
Yeah, I agree. Not necessarily because I wanted to buy, but it just makes playoffs more interesting. But I get the scheduling too. But I'm always a fan of. That's why I posted that in the forum. I'm always a fan of double elimination. I think it just allows for more growth for the teams, more adaptation. So. But it's definitely an advantage for the lower seed teams when you go into playoffs and it's a best of 3 and all you have to do is beat this really highly ranked team twice. I mean, that's a huge advantage for a lower seed.
Yeah. And, but yeah, it is just unfortunate because there really isn't that much open days in these, last week of November, last 2 weeks, and then all of December is usually pretty busy for people, so
that makes
just
sense.
Unlucky. But anyways, now we're gonna go into the semifinals. I'm gonna be switching the order of the games just so that way I'm not forcing Trevor to just talk nonstop. So we're gonna go with 2 versus 1 IQ. 1 IQ winning this 2-1. So how was it?
Oh boy, let me hop on my lectern here. Oh goodness, this series gave me honestly, we were exposed. That's the reality of it, is that we kind of played a certain way the entire season, and it worked the entire season, more or less. And we didn't really have much reason to change it or explore just alternative team comps. And other teams throughout the season had kind of shown glimpses of ways to attack it, but 1IQ was the only one that really figured it all out at the same time and then didn't deviate from it. So the main thing that they did was they, instead of banning out Jeff, which has been, or Fusro, that's usually what most teams have done because he's the known commodity, ban Amumu, ban Udyr, ban Volibear, whatever. They were like, we're going to ban the mid and the top lane instead. So they banned the Mundo because they didn't want to deal with that, which was very smart because the comps they picked would have done very poorly against the Mundo. And Mundo's done very, very well for us because we kind of just hold that in reserve and let teams play into it. So they banned that and they banned Morgana every single game. They didn't deviate it. They didn't try to steal it. They just said, we're taking it off the table, win with something else, which was smart because I believe we're 9-0 this season taking Morgana. So they made us pick something else. And I definitely felt a lot more pressure this series because they were banning me so much more than usual. And I did not have a great response to it. And in terms of what they left open, they decided, okay, we'll leave your normal stuff open. We'll leave L's and Chandler's open. We'll leave Jeff's Juggernauts open, and then we'll just counterpick those. So ban the stuff you're not going to counter the stuff you are going to leave open. And they did that pretty well in games 2 and 3. Game 1, they were trolling. I don't know what they were doing. I busted out the Ivern randomly. Smolder bot. Rihi on a mage. I mean, none of that makes sense. So, but in games 2 and 3, they just thoroughly outdrafted us, and it showed in the results. Another thing that really threw a wrench in the series was they had a different ADC. So normally it's Wandering Monarch for them, and he's usually picking something to support the team. Ashe, Swain, Seraphine, some sort of utility bot laner to help the rest of the dive team carry, but instead they had Bone Garud stepping in, and we didn't really know that until like an hour or two before the game started, so we didn't have a lot of time to figure out what we were in for. When what we were in for was a guy who could play regular high damage ADCs really, really well, and that's just not something that our team comps are good at dealing with. So I mean, he did massive damage all 3 games that we played, and we really did not have an answer for that. Plus, he stole Caitlyn twice, which was our go-to ADC as well. And as Trevor said earlier, it looked pretty good going into game 3 anyway. We got a huge lead. I think we're up 6K at one point, like 20 minutes in. But I think that lead was largely illusory because our comp was just ass. We couldn't kill a tank. Ashe can't kill tanks even when she's fed. Vi can't do anything once they start 5v5ing and they've got Thresh and Tahm Kench to peel. And Caitlyn just does so much more damage than Ashe in a team fight. And, I'm trying my hardest to kite it out on Hui, and I did tons of damage, but it's very slow damage because it's all burn items. And in the end, we just couldn't deal with it. And Rihi finally broke through. In game 3, he finally managed to pop off and get super snowballed. And once that started happening, I was like, all right, I think we're kind of screwed. And we could have maybe salvaged it if we had committed really hard to split pushing and pulling their team apart. But I think between losing game 2 really hard and game 3 turning around, I think we were just kind of just mentally, I don't want to say boomed, but we did not have it was really late too. The series didn't start until I think 9:30 Central. So by that point it was close to midnight and everyone was tired, and we just did not have the mental capacity to pull it together to counter what they were doing. So they ended up taking it.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to know is, because I'm pretty sure I was casting this one, and your draft for game 2 was when you drafted that, was that a good draft for you, or did you feel like you?
Oh, we trolled it 100%.
Okay, good.
Like-
Because
like
I was
1000.
watching this and I was like, there's no chance that this comp
No,
wins.
my biggest regret from that series is how badly I drafted game 2. So because I will partially blame Jeff for this a little bit because they picked jungle early because they first picked a Mumu, and I was trying to we wanted to have Jeff pick afterwards because jungle max jungle, and I was like, I asked him, is Udyr okay with you? And for whatever reason, he just had his mic off, and he doesn't tell me until 5 seconds left. He's like, "Oh, Udyr's not forgetting us a Mumu." I'm like, "Well, bro, tell me something." And I'm like, "Fuck it, we're locking in Udyr. We'll make it work." We didn't make it work. Spoiler alert, but that was set up very poorly. And then they picked the Caitlyn early as well. And we knew we wanted the Sivir going in, but picking Sivir into Caitlyn was a horrible idea. And picking Soraka into Thresh was a horrible idea. So we kind of set bot up to fail as well. And I liked the Veigar pick in theory, but in practice, Rihi was just able to either zone me or shove me out of lane the entire time. So I was never able to do anything at all. And I got frustrated with Jeff because all he was doing the entire game was basically ganking top. But looking back on it, that's all he could do because they had hard prio mid. Bot was losing too hard to gank, so he's just trying to make the best of it. But it's are you really gonna camp the Tom versus Orin lane? You looking for that to snowball you to victory? But I mean that's my fault because our draft was just so horrible that we would have had to have put forth a Herculean effort for that game to be even playable, and we did not. So game 2 to them, and that definitely put us into a really bad headspace going into game 3 as well. And that some of that lingering hilt from the draft definitely stuck with me going into game 3. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but when they left the Hui open for game 3, I just insta-locked that first pick because I was just tired of our people getting counterpicked. And immediately after I locked it in, I'm like, fuck, I should have locked in Caitlyn instead. I could have left the Hui. It's not like they're going to steal it. And again, the Caitlyn ended up being huge for them, so we 100% should have stolen that instead. And I let Jeff play Vi, which I knew I was going to regret that, but I'm like, we'll pick the Ashe, we'll pick the Vi, maybe we'll pick a pick comp. And then they locked in Tahm Kench, and I'm like, I regret everything. This was a horrible decision. And I knew in the back of my mind that their top laner played Tahm Kench, but I did not recall it during draft. And we were just tilted and tired. So, and we got lucky to get out to a huge lead in game 3 anyway, but I think our comp just caught up to us as the game went on. And once we lost momentum in game 3, that shit was over. So there's really no recovering. So yeah, honestly, I take full responsibility for that series. I just drafted really badly, and I was just not prepared for them. They banned in a way that no one else had really banned against us, and I was just not prepared for that at all. So I will eat the L on that one. Rihi talked a lot of shit in the lead up to the series, and he ended up being totally right. And give them a lot of credit, but I definitely think we beat ourselves as much as they beat us, which sounds like a sore loser take, but it's kind of the truth. So,
I mean, even with that, apart from game 2, your performance looked really good that series, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I played well enough in terms of the gameplay, but half my job is to be the captain and the shot caller and the drafter and all that stuff, and I definitely did very poorly on that half of my job. So which is unfortunate, but I think it wouldn't have bothered me as much, but this is basically the same way our season ended last season as well. We were 1 win away from finals. We're against Team PP, and we had Elder and Baron and a huge lead. We're pushing into our base, and we are pushing into their base, and we just end up throwing. And I don't know if any of you remember that at this point, but we ended up losing that game, and we were very disappointed because that was a game we 100% should have had. And then we ended up getting just bopped by bop the week after that. So, and that kind of ended our season. And, that made it our second season in a row that we were not only one win away from finals in a game we were way up in, but also ended up being eliminated by a team that we 2-0'd in the regular season. And give credit to both Bob last season and 1IQ this season. They were clearly not fully on board with what they were doing the first time around we played them. So we definitely kind of underestimated them going into the second time. And that's on me as the captain for not being prepared for that. But we'll get them next time. Woo! Right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, that was excellent breakdown. Very thorough, very informative. Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
I mean, to add on to what Jack said, I thought 1IQ, they drafted well. I mean, if I was going into 2, I would draft similarly. Banning out the mid lanes. Mundo is absolutely broken. I have a lot of experience with it on my team because I've had a Mundo 1 trick on my team for the past 5 seasons of the beer league. I mean, the champion's just ridiculously broken. But the new champion in a lot of these series is Tom Kinch. That champion is looking kind of busted as well. But yeah, I mean, I thought both teams played well. Like Jack said, there were some drafting things that he thought they could have done better. But yeah, I mean, I think it's genius. If I don't know what the reason Bone Grood played, but he is a rostered sub, and in theory, according to the rules, you can play a rostered sub anytime and give no warning that a rostered sub is going to play. So mid-series, you could just switch out a rostered sub, I'm pretty sure. So it's pretty genius if they were like, you know what, Wandering, you're going to take the bench this week. Bone Grood plays ADC well, and he plays Caitlyn well, and you don't. So take the bench and write it and come back in the finals when the team that we play doesn't play, Caitlyn, and the guy plays Kog'Maw, and so if that was
no, I will say that was not what they did. They did tell us ahead of time that he was playing because we weren't going to figure it out once we got into the lobby. It's like, hey, that's not Wandering Monarch.
Also, that's an interesting rule though to take a look at. I feel like for the commissioners, the fact that you don't have to declare a roster ever with a rostered sub, that's kind of weird. You could literally just get into draft and be like, yep, by the way, we have a rostered sub playing BT dub. It's like, oh, okay. Especially in the playoffs. In the regular season, it doesn't really mean much, but in the playoffs, if you're draft or scouting a lot, it can mean, not saying 1IQ did it here, but that is just an interesting caveat of the rules right now.
And I will say that no team has really tried to take advantage of it, at least since I've been here. Yeah, because everyone just shows up with the player that they're going to play with in the lobby, right? Yeah. So even if you didn't know they were going to play before the draft, you'll know going into the draft, oh, that's Bone Garud and not Wandering Monarch. We were still less prepared than we should have been because we only found out about an hour and a half before. And we're not going to redo our entire draft plan in that time. But him being in there definitely completely changed the dynamic because normally I think botling's one of the weaker roles for 1IQ. Not going to throw shade at Wandering Monarch at all, but there's a reason they put him on stuff like Seraphine and Swain and Ashe just to kind of play a complementary role for the team. And having that suddenly shift to a Caitlyn is just not. It's just not that's not a dynamic that we were ready to deal with, and it's also not a dynamic that we as a team, our comps, were good at dealing with because we play a very kiting, anti-engage, disengage sort of long-range comp, and we don't have the dive to deal with a Caitlyn, right? And we had kind of workshopped some ideas of dealing with a more range-heavy comp if we ran into it in the playoffs, but they still didn't really pick that, right? They just swapped out the range carry from mid to bot, and that's very different, right? Because you can tag a mage forever if you've got the right tank in there, but you can't take a Caitlyn for too long, no matter who you are. Yeah, I mean, we probably win that series if the rosters were normal, but I can't blame that, right? I could have just taken the Caitlyn instead of being like, oh, well, they got Caitlyn, nothing we can do.
Yeah, and to say, Wandering played really well though this season. Not Like, I
Yeah,
feel
like
Unger
he did what
played
they asked
well,
him to
but-
do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Wandering was a beast. Like Corky, he picked that a ton this season. Looked really good on it. But that is just, I don't know. I'm interested in the rule more because I feel like if a team could just abuse that, like they could have 6 players in the lobby and just line up however they wanted, because you can also flex at any point, and you could just have literally no idea who is playing in the game until after the draft. Unless there is a rule in the rule book that says otherwise, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
I don't believe there is. But it's kind of just based on gamesmanship as well.
True.
Because it is a competitive for fun league, but winning, it doesn't get you anything other than brownie points. You are supposed to line up in the order that you're most likely to play if bans aren't, an issue. So I mean, they're allowed to do that, and it does stink, but that is just like another wrinkle that comes into this whole scouting for beer league. Like, I know whenever I would scout, I would throw on the other team's, rostered subs just in case. I might not look into it that deeply, but also have like an op.gg link or League of Graphs link.
Oh yeah,
just see some champions that they play.
They didn't do anything illegal, or I'm not calling them out for anything. I mean, if anything, I would call them smart. But clearly, that's not what they were doing. But yeah, it's just an interesting rule to be like, you could really play around that quite a bit. But they played really well. Rehe played really well. I mean, Bongard played really well. I think the Tom Kinch looked insane in the last game. 20 of 25 KP. Quite a lot.
I will say that just to kind of close the sub point is that even if you wanted to come up with some sort of strategy with that, I think it's much harder to do in practice just because of how the beer league teams are built, right? Because you would need 2 people that can play the same role, but you need them to cost the same or pretty close to the same, and you need them to play different enough champion pools to the point where switching them out even matters, right? So it worked really well in this case because Bone Garud and Wandering Monarch played totally different things, and they both cost 3 points. So it ended up just being a perfect fit. But good luck finding subs that even cost the same as the players you want to sub them in for. And neither of my subs were like that. We just took what we could get that worked well enough. There aren't enough players in Beer League to really have, most teams don't even carry 2 subs, right? Let alone use them. I have my thoughts on that. I feel like teams should be required to have subs and use them just so it makes scheduling less of a pain in the ass, but that is a bone for me to pick with the admins later. That's something I've talked to them about a little bit. And I will say that there are times where it felt like having subs available on our team was actually a disadvantage because it gave the other team more leverage with scheduling. So when we played PSR in the regular season, we had to use both subs, and they ended up beating us, and good chance they beat us anyway, even if we had our starting roster. But because we had players on paper ready to go when their team was ready to go, so they were able to roll out their starting 5, and we had to roll out 2 subs, and it ended up being a close series. And I'm kind of like, why do I even have subs if it's just helping the other team get the scheduling that they want? So that's kind of my argument with Austin and Darby, and be like I don't want to have subs if it's going to hurt my team, because it'll just helps the other team schedule when they want to. But
while we're on the topic, let's just open the forums in general. Let's talk about flexing. No, I'm just kidding.
And it didn't happen in playoffs, so I can't complain about it too much. But that's just something that's just kind of been on my mind a lot, because we had to sub a lot this season. And scheduling, I think, for anyone who's been a captain, is easily one of the more tedious and difficult and annoying parts of being a captain in Beer League. So I think anything that would make that less of a pain would be good. So I plan to complain about that loudly to people during the off season. But yeah.
There we go. All right, should we move on? Long-winded man, that Jack.
Oh, it just started. Can't wait to get to PSR series.
Yeah, and that's what we're hopping into the last semifinals, PSR versus ABW. But actually, before we hop into that, I really want to say that Jaggy, you were like I really love all of the just insight you've been providing and on your series.
I felt bad that I haven't been on the show the whole season because I haven't really had a reason to, other than I just didn't volunteer, I guess. So if I keep captaining, I'll have to try to be on more often. So,
but yeah, thank you. But anyways, PSR versus ABW. Trevor, tell us what went wrong, what went right, and what was the downfall.
Well, I already put it in the league chat, but we practically just straight up guessed their game one and their entire game plan going into the series, like literally champion by champion. So if you want to go take a look at that, that's in the league chat somewhere. So yeah, going into the series, we usually do zero scouting, but I already know their team, so we didn't really have to like look at anything. I just know what they play. One because my roommate is Bradley, really bad Zed, is on that team, and also I know Impex Alex as well. But yeah, going into the series, we're like, hey, there's Kog'Maw, there's Jinx, there's Kaisa if he wants to play it. There's a couple others. What else does he plays a couple more hyper carries. So there's just so many hyper carries. Clearly Impex is good at them. So what we'll do is we'll just leave them all open. Because Corky's another good example. Because we would rather him play a Jinx than like a Kog'Maw or something like that. So we knew that if we left Jinx open, they would steal it away from us because Joe also plays, aka Briar's Cute Feud, also plays Jinx. So it's kind of rule one when we were going to the series, like what we're going to do about Impex. So that's what our plan was there. Then going down, really bad Zed plays Yasuo and Yone, which I think we're probably the best in the league going against this team because of what Rowdy Fan plays. Malzahar, good into both champions. Garen, almost unplayable for Yasuo and Yone. So we were like, hey, whatever, let's leave them open. And then now we have both of their best players on 2 AD champions. And then we were like, okay, what if we banned out their jungler? Because he is a very good player. Not 1 point. I'll talk about that later. But if we banned out Skarner, Amumu, and Warwick, that leaves them Kayn or Kindred, both AD carries or AD champions. So we pretty much knew going into it, they're gonna first phase all AD champions, which they did exactly to what we thought. Game 1 and game 2. Game 1, it worked well, I thought. I mean, we had a huge lead. Malzahar looked beautiful into Yone. Yone looked like good, but it didn't look good enough to stop what we wanted to do, which was walk around the map and not fight them. So it looked really good. And it's pretty fun if you go watch, or not fun, but it's interesting. If you go back and watch our VOD from game 1, what ended up happening at the end was, here's a summary of it. Pretty much their Jinx was extremely fed. 5 items, or 34 minutes of the game. They get Elder Dragon, which at that point we shouldn't have given them Elder Dragon, but by the time we did, we realized, it was more, it's hard to be the shot caller because you're thinking one thing in your head, but you don't always necessarily communicate it out loud. So as soon as I saw that they're going Elder, I walked straight down mid, and you can see it on the VOD. I don't even touch the minions, but the rest of my team, because I didn't say it out loud, I was just like, oh, we should push mid. In my head thinking, let's just go straight to the Nexus. We don't need minions to go to the Nexus. But that was not communicated properly by me. So you can see at the end of the game, we're 3 auto attacks away from ending the game 1, which could have been prevented for numerous things. But yeah, so we pretty much just threw game 1. It was a very tough call at the end of the game. By the time they had Elder, there's no way we could fight them, or there was no way we could just stall out the game. And the Jinx just walks down and kills every single one of us in 2 auto attacks. So we shouldn't have gave up Elder, but by the time we gave up Elder, we could have played it a little bit better. So that's kind of game 1. And also we can game 1's draft, because we just literally, which went perfectly. We were like, okay, well, then we'll ban out AP champions, because now they have all AD. And this is a theme throughout the entire series. So we ban out Mordekaiser and Teemo. And according to Really Bad Zed, to talk to him after the series, they had no idea that we knew that they played Teemo. So they were really freaking out after we'd banned the Teemo, because they were like, oh shoot, we literally have no AP champions. And as you see in my league chat, the chat I put on there, the next best thing is JWM has to play some random AP top laner that he usually does not play. And then they'll put Bromstein on Enchanter support, which I predict a Lulu, but he goes Melio, similar. and then they go Rise, which is exactly what we thought. Some random AP top laner, which the Rise was actually huge for them. Did a ton of damage if you look back at the game. Had second most damage on their team. So Rise, bravo to JAWM for literally having to pull out some random crap like on the dime and just killing it. Game 2, they just threw it, honestly. I mean, they played better than us. We did the exact same draft. Instead of banning Teemo, we banned Rise, and the Teemo showed out. Bromstein literally almost doubled every single one of his teammates' damage. So Bromstein killed it. They did a lane swap against us because they didn't want to play into Garen and the Yone. So that's how you stop the Yone. So just 1 IQ, just play Garen. I mean, they don't want to play into it. Malzahar, same thing. It's literally unplayable. So you don't even have to worry about banning that. So yeah, Yone is pretty much useless in this game as well. But yeah, they just threw it. We had a good scaling team. So by the time they wanted to fight, Corky was up. He was online. He was at 3 items. If you look at the game, GP just hits IE, and then Corky just hits Lord Doms, so he's actually at 4 items as soon as we're about to fight, that's what we were waiting for. And then they want to fight us at Baron, and then we just killed them all. So that was unfortunate for them. So really, at this point in the series, game 1 should have went our way, game 2 should have went theirs. So 2 throws for sure. And then game 3, just a terrible draft, honestly. Unfortunately, which is just the most painful way to lose. Like, you just walk onto the rift and you're like, all right, this game's already over, bro. Which is just sucks when you're going home afterwards. But yeah, I mean, the biggest flaw here is me being a Nocturne. It's very similar to 1 IQ and the fact that you're one of your better players needs to be on something that has agency. So that's why I haven't played a Mumu all season, or champions like that, even though I do like playing them, like Vi. They don't have any agency. And in order for our team to win, and similar to in order for 1 IQ, like you saw him on Orianna, where he didn't look that, I mean, he looked okay on Orianna, but how their team works, it just doesn't work. So the Nocturne was funny because originally we were like, hey, what if we ban out Skarner, Warwick, and then we take away the Kayn? Because Saw Dude, shout out to this guy, he popped off this series. And we were thinking that in game 3, or maybe even the Kog'Maw, and then we suggested maybe me first picking a Mumu, because I'm comfortable in that. But then I was like, you know what? No, it doesn't have any agency, which then I proceed to pick Nocturne, B4, which is even worse of a pick. So I should have just picked Wukong or a Mumu, Wukong or Echo or something like that, and we probably would have been fine. But yeah, unfortunate. Definitely unfortunate way to go out. But I mean, they played really well. Now that they're on their main roles, you can definitely see how good this team is. Really bad Zed isn't inting on support anymore. He's actually playing his main role, which he's very good at. He's a very good player. And yeah, I mean, we lost the game, or we lost the series because of us. But they played really, it's a combination. They played really well. We also lost due to us. And this isn't copium here, but this is just besides the point. Give me a break. Saw Dude is not 1 point. There's no shot in the world. The guy that's the highest ranked player in solo queue on their team is 1 point. Not saying that's why we lost the series. We should have still beat them, but I think anyone could agree that this guy, there's literally no world this guy is 1 point. But hey, that's just me. He's lower points than both Dan, and actually Sergeant Metro is 1 point, but Briar's cute feet, which, hey, just gonna leave that out there. But yeah, they played really well. Not saying that's why we lost. Definitely don't want that to be the main takeaway. They played really, really well. And if we had to make predictions right now for finals, they're gonna 3-0, my opinion.
Wow. Okay. Bold. I like that. No, I'm going to say that Trevor just kind of gave me a run for my money for my synopsis of our series. He basically did the same thing I did, even with the same conclusion. It's like, we bit ourselves, It's like the same salty conclusion. No, I respect that. But I mean, that's the life of the number 1 and number 2 seeds, right? You expect to be in the finals. If you don't make it, gotta internalize it. So I get that.
Oh yeah, it hurt. It hurt. And I think there will be several retirements, not because of that game. I think it was already planned, but so that's also an unfortunate way to go out if you're retiring from the beer league. So,
and Tyler and I did actually cast the series.
Yes.
So we have a bit of a different perspective on some of the things, I'm sure.
You guys sucked.
Yeah, I did not play well though. For real though, the whole series,
I will say this was a wild series to cast. Like the ending to game 1 was crazy. Like I could not believe that ABW held with no Nexus towers. And honestly, I think you guys just rushed it a little bit trying to end the game, and you weren't like fully together and coordinated, and ended up getting picked off by Elder. And I think if you had just been a little bit more coordinated to push it, and you probably would have ended up winning that game. But on the flip side of that coin, game 2, you're totally right. They 100% through, and it's actually worse than you think, because during the cast when they were setting up for the Baron, their Yon had TP the whole time. He had great wards to TP to. For whatever reason, he just didn't. And
the mid tier 1 turret.
And me and Tyler, not only did he TP like super duper late, but he like did it to a really weird spot too. Mm-hmm. And we were like, they just threw the game by doing that. And I don't know what is going on in Yon's head in this game that caused that to happen. But like that was like that game that could have easily been a backbreaking play the other way if Yon had TP'd at the right place at the right time, because the fight did not look good for you guys, even without him there, and you guys ended up coming out ahead because he was so late. But if he had been on time, I mean, that could have easily been a 2-0 series in favor of ABW.
Garen things. Garen, in that fight, Garen literally just ghosted, flashed back onto their Jinx, and just one-shot him, and then Gorgie and GP just did their thing.
Yep. So, and yeah, the game 3, I mean, you got the Tom Kench experience as well, or you pick the diver jungler that suddenly doesn't get to do anything because they have a Tom Kench.
Tom Kench did amazing things that game. JW played really. I mean, you could see. I mean, it was a very slow game, 12-2 in kills. That might be the lowest kills in a single game in Beer League this entire season.
Oh yeah,
and it wasn't because we were trying to not engage. I mean, I ulted like 6 or 7 times. 1 HP person gets out alive, so. They just had a good comp. And then once they got to late game, similar to what you were saying, Jack, we had literally no damage to kill Tom Kench, the Red Cane. I mean, even the Kog'Maw, I mean, building, tanky. So, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, my biggest takeaway from the whole series was just the jungle matchup, right? Sawdude at the not 1-pointer. He played obviously incredibly well, and you guys basically said we're going to make you carry on Kane, and he absolutely delivered on that 100%. And I'm not going to say like I'm flaming you, because you were definitely trying to make plays, but for whatever reason they just were not working the entire series. And it's not like you make Echo, Wukong, Nocturne. Those are champs that should be able to get ganks off somewhere, but it just was not. The kills just were not coming. And meanwhile, Sawdude was just kind of AFK farming his way across the map happily and getting objectives. And going into game 3, I really wanted to see you play like Shyvana game 3 and just like beat him in his own game. Yep. But you kind of just went with a Nocturne, and I'm like, well, I hope it works this time, because it hasn't worked the last couple times. And then I saw the Tom Kench lock in from them, and I'm like, oh no, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, Shyvana would have been a good pick. Tryndamere would have been a good pick. We're undefeated on Tryndamere this season. So picks like that, just something with more agency where I can play around the map, where Nocturne is just very just like what I was saying about Vi earlier, very one-dimensional. You go in, that's it. And if they have a Tom Kench, well, there's no option. You're just useless. So
yeah, I don't know. They summed it up perfectly. I don't have anything.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say, just to cope more, for what you were saying, what were you saying, Jack? Is like, we should have played it slower. We thought, or at least I thought about that in the moment in game 1, but there was no playing it slower, because, like you said, the idea was, okay, well, it's an open Nexus and we have Baron, we can just shove it down. But I literally think if they would have auto-attacked us once with Jinx, we would have literally just died. 9-1 Jinx, 5 items. There's nothing we could do. So that's why we made that quick decision. It's just like, all right, we either do it now or
Yeah.
There's no waiting it out. There could have been, I don't know, but in the moment we were like, there's no way. Like they'll just push, even though we have Baron, they'll just push down into us and they'll just kill us. So
I will say I do partly disagree with your assessment of game one, because you guys were ahead in gold for a lot of it, but in terms of actually fighting, like it was not happening for you guys.
We weren't trying to fight.
The Malawi was hard carrying game one so hard. Like and like you guys could not, like anytime the teams actually clashed, it was kind of a disaster for you guys. So I think you guys were lucky to even be in that position to try to end it there.
That's special. We don't fight anyone. We were down it was so funny because even in game we knew we were up I don't even know 8k gold and we were down legit 20 kills. But it just doesn't matter. That's just not how we play. So we don't really care about the kills, and we knew we couldn't fight them. That was the whole thing. But we just.
I know. I mean, you pulled the same nonsense against us with your whole TP onto four TPs onto a minion to end the game in game 3, which I'm still mad about.
And that's something I look back on as well. There was actually a ward in their base at the end of the game, and I got up and I had TP. I don't know if it would have been extreme. I don't think it would have mattered, but I could have potentially TP'd base and ended it.
It wouldn't have mattered because the inhib had just respawned. So you would have had taken that down as well.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, because I was actually calling that. And also, that's fun to do if you have a team and you're willing to put your comms up. Because I love hearing the enemy comms as well, just being okay, what were they thinking this? But you can hear that in the comms too, because I actually was exactly what you're saying, Tyler. I was like, oh, I can TP in their base. And then I think in the comms you can hear me, oh, shoot, no, the inhibitor just it's not going to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, just excellently said. Great analysis on that. And as Trevor said it in his little breakdown, but thoughts on finals, ABW versus 1IQ. A lot of predictions had 1IQ going to finals, so that's not super surprising. Even if you didn't predict it, it's not exactly surprising to see. But ABW, the 5th seed, making it all the way to finals is definitely fun and exciting to see. Definitely wasn't on very many, maybe just a few predictions or 2 or 1. So Trevor already said he thinks ABW 3-0s. I think that's a bit extreme. I'm kind of feeling like how I felt about Genji versus FlyQuest from Worlds Finals, where I hope ABW wins. No, the
Oh, Genji, yeah.
Not Worlds Finals, Worlds Playoffs. Playoffs is what I meant. It was the quarters in playoffs. Right. But FlyQuest took a few games off of Genji, but Genji won. But basically, I think ABW is going to take a couple games off of 1IQ, but in the end, I think 1IQ is going to win. But also, if ABW wins, I'll be excited. So that's what I think. 1IQ 3-2 for that.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, my take is that in my own bracket, I had predicted that we would get to the finals, which clearly didn't happen, and that we would 3-0 1IQ. Honestly, I think 1IQ is kind of predictable. I mean, I think ABW is kind of predictable. Clearly, we predicted their entire draft, but I just think 1IQ's only way to win has been Rihi the entire season, and I think really bad Zed's just better. And I just think it's going to be a destruction. I think ABW is extremely good team, and it's nothing against 1IQ. I mean, I think they are a one-dimensional team, but I don't think ABW is. They have Impex ready to carry it literally whenever. JWM and Bromstein both carried games in that previous series, so that's why I think it's a 3-0, which I love. Darby, Donovan, and Austin, Sleepy Panda, but and supposedly they're retiring as well after this series or season. So hopefully they go out with a good fight. But that's my prediction.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of our summary of 1IQ as well. We think they're a very one-dimensional team. He gets fed, they win. He doesn't get fed, they lose. And that's kind of what we planned for when we played them. But them having suddenly a really good ADC player, we were very impressed with Bone Garud. Like he walked the walk and talked the talk of playing like a regular high damage ADC, and that was just a component they've been lacking all season. And I don't know who's going to play for them in the finals. I suspect it'll be Wandering Monarch because that's just who their starter they've rolled with the entire season. I doubt they're going to bench him for the finals. That just sounds really mean. But who knows? I mean, maybe they'll have some hard conversations to make about that because I'm not convinced they beat us without Bone Guru there as that kind of wild card. So I think I agree with your take. I like ABW more, just in general. If 1IQ feels their expected roster just because it is warm one-dimensional. I think the mid lane will be a lot of fun to watch. It'll be double assassins, most likely. It'll Echo versus Zed or Echo versus Yone mid. I'm calling it now. It's going to be one of the matchups.
Oh yeah, it's going to be fun.
It should be fun. Can Sawdude keep up his level of play going to the finals? I don't know. He looked great last week, but there have been times where he's looked like a 1-point jungler. And that's the thing with a lot of the lower cost players in Beer League is they tend to be lower cost not because they're bad players all the time, but because they're just inconsistent, right? And sometimes, our top laner was like that. Half the time, Lynch Draco looks like a 5-point top laner, and half the time he looks like a 1-point top laner. So, and a lot of that is just not knowing certain matchups as well, or not knowing what to do in macro. And you don't know what you're going to get until you get into the series. As far as predictions, I'd say ABW takes it 3-1. But that is a very low confidence guess. I really don't know what's going to happen. I look forward to watching it. And we'll hand it over to Trevor here. Or not Trevor, but Tyler. I know which one of you is which. Don't give me that face.
So, I don't know. I think both teams have very good mid laners, obviously. Enrique and Bromstein. Whenever Bromstein has to lane swap because, really bad Zed is afraid of a Garen. No. I think it's going to come down to the junglers this series. I think they do have similar playstyles depending on if Kane is in the game or not. They both play Amumu. They both, I don't know. I want to say they both play, just like their champ pools are very similar, I think, with Skarner as well. So I think it's going to come down to which jungler can help out their mid laner the most. I think that's going to be a big deal depending on if Bone Guru is subbed in for ADC or not. Could play something as well, but I don't know. I think Sleepy Panda in the top lane, he's not going to be playing for outplays and damage. Like he's like, hey, I'm gonna scale up, I'm going to tank up, and I'm just going to soak up all the damage that you guys are going to shoot out at my team. I think Super Noob has some pretty great ganks just from the Raptor Pit. So if you're a really bad Zed, just watch out for Raptor Pit ganks. But I don't know. I think 2 just has, 1IQ, has like a few more champions in their champ pool for their players. So I think that they're going to take it 3-1. So yeah, I'm hoping it's not a long series because I might be looking to cast and help cast it. So if it runs too late, so I'll say 3-1 for 1IQ.
Yeah, and something I'll just add real quick is I think the biggest pivot player of this entire series is going to be Super Noob. Andrew is a freaking beast support, but I feel like he hasn't really been that this season. Like he's been good, but he hasn't been like, holy moly, this guy is like literally just dominating the entire map. Which I know he can do, and I've seen him do it in my own games. So I think, because I think they're just outmatched in every single lane, honestly. And it's nothing personal or anything. Like I think, like I said, Ree is not as good as really bad Zed. So based on Sawdude's last performance, Donovan's not as good as Sawdude. Sleepy Panda's not as good as JWM. Impex is better than Wandering Monarch. So I think it just comes down to Super Noob. Like that could be the difference. Will it be enough? Not sure, but just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and you guys, I'm pretty sure, like both said that you think that 1IQ is pretty one-dimensional. So with that, and with Richie usually being the sort of like center of that, do you think that like a Yon Echo Yon Echo Wukong like as first 3 bans is like a must against 1IQ, or would you not necessarily completely focus Richie with the bans?
It's hard. I mean, if it depends on the team you are. I mean, like for our team, we don't play Yon, so yeah. Like if we don't have it, well, for our team, we have good counters into Yon. But if you don't have any good counters, then yeah. But Really Bad Zed plays it, and he clearly prioritizes it, no matter who he's playing into or what he's playing into. So I would probably say both teams are going to be, whoever gets blue side, both teams are going to be banning out whatever they don't want to play against. If what they're going to first pick Yon, they're going to ban out whatever they don't want to play against if it doesn't get banned. I don't see ABW banning Yon the entire series. I could be wrong, but I definitely could see 1IQ. Like I think Tyler said it, 1IQ is definitely more dimension or like versatile in draft. ABW does have smaller champion pools, and I think ABW isn't as good at drafting. So it'll be interesting to see, but that's what I would guess.
I will say you probably won't see Wukong, I would guess. I think the main reason he picked it was because of a counter pick to Yone. So if you see it again in finals, it probably will be in that context. I don't think Wukong mid is that great in general, but against a squishy melee mid laner, I mean, we saw what happened to Mui, right? So I think that was the context in which they picked it in. That's the only time he's picked it this entire season. So it's probably not worth banning unless you're planning to play Yone yourself, which, I mean, they do that, so maybe they do ban it anyway. I do know Rihi's got some other stuff he's got cooking, prepared for finals. I'm not going to spoil it here because that would be very, very unsportsmanlike of me. But I wouldn't be shocked to see that get banned after a game of success. So I look forward to seeing if Rihi finally busts it out, because he has not played it yet in B League this season. So that's kind of a little bit of a hint.
So hold on, just to throw this out there, I saw a notification in Beer League chat. ABW looking for a sub for jungle on Sunday. But this might.
Really?
Oh, never mind. It's just some
I think they're
trash talking
memeing
between their own teammetes and memeing one another.
So they're looking for a hero
this
point
was just
sub.
out of there.
So yeah,
That definitely changes it.
Yeah.
I think they
go from 3 points to 0.
I think scrolling up a little bit, I think Sada was talking about defecting to 1IQ after the season, and I think they didn't take too kindly to that, so they were talking about benching him for the finals. But
I mean, I don't have anything against that. I think that is fair. If your player is already walking out the door, just let them go.
True.
If in pro sports, if you're contemplating retirement, then you might as well just retire because your head's not in it fully. So yeah,
he's not retiring. He's just looking to get on.
1IQ should all just stop playing then.
I have it on good authority that they've part of their team has been ready for this season to be over for a while, so they have mixed feelings about making it this far. So
yeah, right.
I know Rihi's not one of them though. He's pumped. He's motivated for sure. That dude has played like a psycho, 4-point mid laner in my ass, bro. That dude has played like the premier mid laner of the league the entire season. So.
But I will say, he has not played against Really Bad Zed, and I am pretty sure historically, Really Bad Zed has done very well into Rihi, not even close. Just putting that out there, and they played mini games against each other throughout the 9 seasons of Beer League they've played together.
Well, fair enough.
And we haven't gotten to see Rihi versus.
And I love Richie. Don't get me wrong. This is literally nothing personal against Richie, but Really Bad Zed is really good.
Yeah, and this season, Really Bad Zed was playing support when they played against 1IQ, so we haven't gotten to see it this specific season, them versus each other. So
all part of the plan. ABW geniuses.
It'll be crazy. Well, I know that Jack said doesn't want to reveal too much, but is there anything that you two would want to reveal in terms of any secrets, strategies, or maybe just tips for the teams going into finals, since you've played against both teams that are going into the finals?
I mean, given how we drafted against 1IQ, maybe I shouldn't give any tips. Clearly, you don't want my opinion on that one. I didn't know what I was doing, so don't ask me.
Yeah, I would just say it's hard. I mean, it's very hard to give tips because everything's so situational. Like, our team clearly wants to play one way, which is completely opposite than every single other team in the league. So some things that we want to do draft-wise aren't going to help them. But, I mean, the obvious things that you look at, Impex plays a lot of carries. You're not going to ban them all. So do with that whatever you want to do. Really Bad Zed is going to play some type of assassin mid lane. Do with that whatever you want to do. Their jungler plays only 80 champions besides Amumu. Do with that whatever you want to do. And their top laner, they just don't play AP on ABW. So that's all I would say.
I will say just one final thing from me, just out of curiosity, Trevor. Do you, after seeing how it went, do you stand by the decision to have him or make Sadu play Kayn instead of like a tank jungler all 3 games?
Yeah, I think it was fine, but I think we should have banned it after game 3. After a guy's like that heated up on it and doing that well on it, we should have just, like, I like the strategy, but we should have just tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah, as I could understand like letting it go through like game 1, maybe game 2, see how he does on it. But when he clearly shows that he's on it, I'd rather, if it were just me, I'd rather see him play something else. So
yeah,
it might not have mattered game 3 anyway, just because of how rough the draft was for you guys in general. But if they're hot, right? You know, they banned my Morgana for a reason. Get that out of my hands. So. Although, according to Rihi, he still doesn't think that Morgana's that good, but he's the only guy to ban it 3 times. So he clearly thinks it's at least a little bit good. But yeah, no, fair enough. If you think you'd rather have him on a carry than a tank, I mean, fair enough.
Well, with those final thoughts, I'm gonna wrap this episode up. Finals, ABW versus 1IQ is going to be on Sunday, December 1st at 7 p.m. Central. Thank you so much for my usual host joining me. Thank you, SlamuraiJack, for joining. You gave some excellent analysis this episode. Also, thank you, Trevor, for the season playoffs music video.
It's absolutely good. Love to do it.
And I believe that is everything I had to say. Thank you for watching, thank you for playing, and have a good week. Oh wait, I wanted to say... now I remember the thing. I wanted to say that next episode we'll have MVP and I think there was another thing, but I can't remember it, so...
Nice.
So,
I can't wait to be on.
But yeah, MVP is going to be me, by the way. See you next week. I'm subbing in, it's happening.
Yeah.